The Nasdaq and the S&P 500 hit their highest levels in 13 months in broad-based gains as Wall Street bets on the Fed being close to completing the rate hike cycle. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific opened mixed ahead of the Bank of Japan's policy decision, while the SGX Nifty is indicating a higher start for the Indian market. European markets closed largely lower after the ECB raises rates by an expected 25 basis points as inflation remains well above its target. The bank also turns more cautious on growth, lowers its projection to 0.9% this year and to 1.5% in 2024. Crude prices rallied to a one-week high at over $75 a barrel as China's oil refinery throughput rises over 15% on a year-on-year basis. A weaker dollar also aids the up move. India's trade deficit widens to a 5-month high of $22 billion due to higher goods imports. Exports fall 10%, while imports decline by 6.6%. Exports contract for the fourth month in a row due to a global slowdown. Cyclone Biparjoy makes landfall near the Saurashtra-Kutch coast. The storm is likely to recede to a depression by this evening. So far, 2 people have lost their lives and 22 have been injured as heavy rains and wind lashed the coastline. Good morning in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Sonal Bhutra. You're watching Power Breakfast. It's a Friday morning, has been a long week, but a lot to catch up on as well that happened overnight in the global markets. But first up, let's take a look at what the Asian markets are doing. Largely mixed after a strong handover that we got from the Wall Street. And remember, awaiting the Bank of Japan's decision as well as far as rate is concerned. The Hang Seng is up around 134 points. The Taiwanese index is down 46 points. And that's the picture, a mixed cue coming in from the Asian markets. Nikkei, after the stellar rally that it has been seeing this entire year, is down 0.7%, and we do have the Kospi, which is higher in trade to the tune of 0.3%. Of course, Bank of Japan's decision is awaited, and SGX Nifty is indicating that the start for our own markets, well, that could be in the green. A 41-point uptick is what the SGX Nifty is indicating. Yesterday as well, we did see higher levels, but we saw some profit taking towards the end, so it'll be important to note what levels are we looking at as far as Nifty is concerned. But let's talk about the US markets now, because Wall Street ended Thursday's trading sessions sharply higher a day after the Fed's decision to pause, with the Dow Jones surging over 420 points and both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite closing over 1% higher. Microsoft hit a record high as the tech major on the back of continued interest and optimism over artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, shares of Virgin Galactic surged over 43% in after-hours trade after the company said it aims to launch its first commercial space tourism flight as early as the month end. And in primary market action from the States, shares of Mediterranean restaurant chain Cava soared 117% in its market debut on Thursday. So yes, a lot of stock-specific action in the US markets as well. But let's do one thing. Let's move on to some important opinion from former policymakers on the Fed's decision to skip a rate hike. Listen in to what former Fed Reserve Governor Daniel Tarullo and former Dallas Fed President Richard Fisher had to say about the hawkish pause.
I think we've been seeing the hints of the pause for some time now. And I think they basically got themselves in a position, and maybe they didn't mind being there, but they were basically in a position where if they hadn't paused yesterday, it would have really raised questions about, what Governor Jefferson was saying, what Chair Powell was saying a few weeks ago. So they would have had a credibility issue there as well. I think there's going to be a fair amount of internally generated pressure on them to go ahead with one more rate increase. Whether there's a second rate increase, I think, is much more debatable.
Well, first of all, I agree with the decision that was made. There was no surprise there whatsoever. The key thing, Ben Bernanke used to say, I think is right. It's not just what you do here at the FOMC, it's what you say. And I think he said all the right things. Especially important was reaffirming the sanctity of the 2% target. And unless they feel they're getting there, they're going to continue to hold tight monetary policy. And if it gets possibly worse, then they have plotted out on the dot plot that they might raise 2 more times.
Okay, that is all about the hawkish pause in the US economy right now as far as rate hikes are concerned. But in central bank action, the European Central Bank announced a 25 basis point rate hike in line with expectations. This takes its main rate to 3.5%, and the bank has raised rates since July 2022 in an attempt to bring down record high inflation across the region. The ECB also raised its headline and core expectations for this and next year. Note that it also lowered its growth projections for this year and the next. Let's listen in to what President Christine Lagarde had to say.
Are we done? Have we finished the journey? No. We're not at destination. Do we still have ground to cover? Yes, we have ground to cover. And I can even go further than that. I can tell you that bearing a material change to our baseline, it is very likely the case that we will continue to increase rates in July. As far as the ECB is concerned, I said what I said. We have hiked interest rates. Unless there was a material change to our baseline, we will continue to hike at our next meeting. So we are not thinking about pausing, as you can tell. Inflation has been coming down, but is projected to remain too high for too long. We are determined to ensure that inflation returns to our 2% medium-term target in a timely manner. The Governing Council, therefore, today decided to raise the three key ECB interest rates by 25 basis points. According to the June macroeconomic projections, Eurosystem staff expect headline inflation to average 5.4% in 2023, 3% in 2024, and 2.2% in 2025. Indicators of underlying price pressures remain strong, although some show tentative signs of softening.
Okay, that is the word coming in from Christine Lagarde. And reacting to the ECB's decision and President Lagarde's commentary, European markets ended Thursday's trading session largely lower, with the French CAC down 37 points, the German DAX slipping 20 points, and the British FTSE closing with gains of 25 points. Okay, that is all about the global market action, and we did see a lot of it last evening. But how will these overnight cues impact our own markets? We have our research team joining in to tell you just that. This is our Power Prep segment. We'll tell you what the trade setup looks like, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and the action from the F&O space as well. Hey guys, a very good morning to all of you and a happy Friday as well. Ekta, let me come across to you. What is the market setup looking like today?
Thanks for that. Good morning. Well, there was caution after the Fed's hawkish comments yesterday. The Nifty sensex saw profit booking after 3 days of gains. The Nifty failed to hold on to 18,700. The financials were under pressure. The bank Nifty saw an over 500-point cut in the index yesterday. Now, the mid-cap index was at a record high, so that pocket of outperformance continues. The mid-caps continued to gain. The mid-cap index is now up over 2% on a week-to-date basis. Now, globally, the ECB policy outcome, which you all referred to just a few minutes ago, they have hiked rates by 25 basis points. The European markets closed slightly lower, but the US markets, highest intraday levels that we've seen since April of 2022. Asia is mixed at this point in time, and the SGX is indicating a bit of a positive start. So the inherent strength post the Fed meet for the US markets continues at this point in time. Just watch out for crude prices, because that too jumped around 3% overnight. Now, in terms of flows, the FII's net bought around 3,000 crores plus, DII's net sold around close to 300 odd crores. There was the Axis Bank block deal, which was a part of the flows. So that would be something that we would monitor in terms of flows going forward. Remember, FIIs have been buying before this for the past 2 to 3 trading sessions as well, X of any kind of block deal factor. Now, we are likely to continue seeing stock-specific interest in our markets. The FTSE index changes come into effect from today's market close as well. India could receive net inflows of around $250 to $270 million.
Okay, all right. So that is the market setup. Thank you so much for that, Ekta. Over to Vivek now. He'll list out all the stocks which are on our radar today. Vivek?
Well, good morning. Quite a few stocks to keep on your radar, once market opens. So first one, keep an eye out for both Ramkrishna Forgings as well as Titagarh Rail Systems. A consortium of both of these companies has gone ahead and won a contract in excess of 12,200 crores from the Ministry of Railways. Now, this particular contract is for manufacturing and supply of 15.4 lakh forged wheels, and this is over a span of 20 years. Keep an eye out for Torrent Pharma as well. Some positive news flow coming in. The US FDA has gone ahead and issued an establishment inspection report for an oral oncology manufacturing facility at Gujarat. So this means that the outcome of the audit is successful and the company has not received any adverse observations. Watch out for both BHEL as well as Eicher Motors. BHEL and Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles Limited have gone ahead and entered into a memorandum of understanding. This is to jointly develop and manufacture Type 4 cylinders, both hydrogen as well as CNG, in the commercial vehicle segment. So this MOU, important to see what kind of ordering activity actually happens in this particular space. And lastly, keep an eye out for NLC India. Interestingly, the company has gone ahead and incorporated an arm known as NLC India Renewables Limited. This is to take over all of the company's existing renewable assets.
Okay, all right. Vivek, thank you so much for all those details. Those are the stocks which are on our radar today. Let me go across to Nigel. He's joining in with all the cues from the F&O space this morning. Nigel?
Well, morning. Yesterday we had an expiry-related phenomena that played out, and that's why we saw a sudden dip in the Nifty, particularly in the last 60 minutes or so. Now, there were some mild short positions that were added both on the Nifty and the Nifty Bank. And the Nifty Bank needs to bounce from somewhere in this vicinity because that's been a bit of a weak point in the last 1 week or so. What did the FIs do in the F&O market? Well, they added some short positions, close to 9,000 short contracts. That was in the ratio of close to around 4 shorts for every 1 long position. So the shorts that was sub 45%, now they've moved to around 48% approximately. On the Nifty options data, well, we saw writing yesterday, 18,800 call. Well, that's been very, very active. But yesterday we saw some action even at around the 18,700. That's both the call as well as put. The question is which way is this going to swing off around 18,700? For the time being, the broad range will be around 18,500 to around 18,900 odd. But in the near term, the levels that you're tracking is going by the 18,700 put open interest build up in the premium. 18,615 becomes important on the downside. And lower than that, you're looking at the 20 DMA. So that's the important support band. SGX Nifty suggesting a gap up. But my gut is don't go ahead and rush and chase that gap up. Look to buy the intraday dip. We're still in an uptrend till that 20 DMA does hold out. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Nigel, Vivek and Ekta, thank you so much for joining us. That's our Power Prep segment. Time for a short break now. When we return, we'll get you the excerpts from our exclusive conversation with the CEO of Cognizant on the other side. Stay tuned for that.
वन टू थ्री फोर फाइव ठीक है. अब टोन ठीक होना चाहिए, बाकी कर लेंगे बाद में. अभी लेवल आ रहा है ना. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट. टॉप बैक पे था मैं. हाँ ठीक है. 1 1 यस.
Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Let us first get you some important macro cues now. India's trade deficit has widened to a 5-month high of $22.12 billion as exports and imports have slipped in May. Exports for the month contracted for the 4th month in a row, declining 10.3%, while exports of engineering goods, jewelry and petro products were all lower in May. Now let's move on to a CNBC TV 18 exclusive. Our colleague Shireen Bhan caught up with Ravi Kumar S., the CEO of global tech major Cognizant, to talk about the tumult in financial services sector, key acquisitions and much more in our special show On the Record. Listen into excerpts of that conversation.
There's no change in my narrative since what I have said in May. Some sectors are impacted or discretionary spend, and it's also falling off the cliff in some places. Financial services is the sector. Of course, we have a huge presence in healthcare. In fact, our healthcare economy is one of the largest in the world. Between healthcare, health equipment, devices, life sciences, we are the biggest provider. That is resilient to economic cycles. So that's an advantage we have. But overall, I'm seeing a lot of large deals. I think this is how the market is evolving, and I'm hoping that the progress we've made so far, as well as what we are planning to do for the future, I'm very hopeful that we could bring back the growth mindset.
Acquisitions, because as part of your winning strategy, is that likely to be a big driver as well? You've done about 4 recently. How big of an emphasis is that going to be?
So, our capital allocation policy has been stated to do acquisitions. In fact, 50% of my free cash we use for acquisitions. That's the stated policy. I have not changed that policy. I think acquisitions have contributed well to digital capabilities and gaps which we had, and we've always used that as a way to fill the gaps. I'm going to continue to look for meaningful, purposeful acquisitions, which will continue to give us acceleration. The ones we did were, the last one I did was a mobility asset. Cognizant, as it built its value proposition on a confluence of industry and technology, and I told you how the heritage is. We also actually are a big platform play. I mean, our healthcare platform, TriZetto, has 2/3 of the insured population of the United States is on that platform. So I'm going to look for M&A activity either on platforms, industry domain, or gaps in geographies where we don't have a presence. We are a little more dominant in the U.S. 75% of our revenue comes from the U.S. So I'm under-indexed in other parts of the world, so we could fill the gaps using that. Equally, we have a huge presence in healthcare and financial services, and we have a lesser presence in other industries. We could fill the gaps using that as well. So it's a strategic tool. I'm going to use it as needed.
You talked about the cost saving that you hope to accrue on account of downsizing your real estate, as well as the layoffs that had been announced, about 3,500 that you announced in May. Are you done with that, or do you believe, given the environment, more will need to be done in order to protect margins?
So we made that announcement last quarter. We have made some progress this quarter that will continue for this year. I made a conscious call to only look for structural shifts. I mean, structural shifts of cost will never, hopefully won't come back. I think the social looking at the aspect that flexibility cannot be at odds to productivity, we think we can move work to where people are. So we are actually going to move a lot of that work to Tier 2 cities.
And you can catch excerpts from that exclusive conversation with the CEO of Cognizant all day today on CNBC TV 18. Time to slip into another break, and up next we'll get you all the cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. A lot is happening in the commodity space as well. Manisha Gupta is joining us, as always, with all the updates. Hey, Manisha, good morning. Happy Friday.
I really hope that is the case for the commodities as well. But yes, we still have the Bank of Japan to react to in sense of monetary policy. But in the meanwhile, you have the crude oil prices gaining 3% overnight. You know, the rate cut in China, and then the China refinery output gaining 15% in the month of May clearly has been supportive for the crude oil prices. Also, the dollar index below 103, which is a 5-week low, has been supportive for many commodities. And then the markets are reacting to the positive U.S. retail sales data as well. And then for the crude oil prices, there is a report from IEA suggesting that the global oil demand will rise 6% between 2022 to 2028, and that we are on a bank on that, and that has been positive as well. The markets are talking about and July as the driving season demand picks up in U.S., and that perhaps would support crude prices. Also, we already are seeing that in prices as the reason we are back above $75 a barrel for the Brent prices.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Manisha, for joining us. Have a good day. With that, let's shift focus to Cyclone Biparjoy, where at least 2 people were killed after the cyclone made landfall late Thursday evening. Strong winds and heavy rains lashed the coastal districts of Gujarat following the landfall. Trees fell, electricity poles got uprooted, blocking roads and causing power outages. Prime Minister Narendra Modi called up Gujarat Chief Minister Bhupendra Patel to take stock of the situation. Biparjoy is likely to lose most of its energy by today. However, some areas in Rajasthan and adjoining areas are expected to experience strong winds and rainfall till Saturday. Okay, all right. So we'll keep tracking, of course, the updates from Cyclone Biparjoy. But for now, let's quickly take a look at what the Asian markets are doing. Still largely mixed. We are seeing good cues coming in from the Hang Seng markets. Though it has pared down some of its gains, the Taiwanese index has extended the losses. And SGX Nifty will come up for you on the screen. And that one is indicating that, yes, the start for our own markets will be in the green. But we'll have to see whether those levels sustain or not. It is a 40-point uptick that the SGX Nifty is indicating right now. We'll take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast. Stay tuned. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next.